Meeting of January 14th to order at 7:33. Everybody rise and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, will you read the Public Meetings Act statement, please?
The special meeting was called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. Notice of this meeting was published in the Record on January 11th, 2020. In addition, a copy of the notice was posted on a bulletin board in the municipal building, posted on the city's website, and filed in the office of the municipal clerk. Notice on the bulletin board has remained continuously posted. The purpose of the meeting is to conduct the agenda of the workshop meeting previously scheduled for January 7th, 2020, which includes action to be taken on the professional service appointments tabled at the reorganization meeting. Any other action reasonably related thereto may also be taken. The council reserves the right to discuss and act upon such public business as may be brought up for consideration to the extent that consideration of such public business is not known at this time, and reserves the right to go into closed session during this meeting. Formal action will be taken. Proper notice having been given, the municipal clerk is directed to include the statement in the minutes of this meeting.
City Clerk, could you please do the roll call?
Councilman Cohen.
Yes.
Councilwoman Glynn.
Yes.
Councilman Hamer.
Here.
Councilwoman Rosenberg.
Here.
Council President Cobb.
Here.
Also present is City Attorney Bill Bailey and Interim City Manager Jewel Thompson Chin. Absent is Mayor Michael Wilds, who requested that the record reflect that he was not able to, that he will be running late and is not able to attend at this time due to the scheduling of EMT training and testing that he had previously scheduled for this evening, since it was not a normally scheduled meeting. Thank you.
Now we'll move to the resolutions for vote. However, we'll say if the public wishes to speak on resolution 024 to 030 and 032 to 036.
Yeah, Ricardo Wilby, Englewood, New Jersey.
Yes.
Yeah, the last time we was here, Scott Jenkins from the North Jersey Black Caucus for Civil Rights, he asked about minority contractors being awarded. Any of these appointments, minority contractors?
I can't say specifically. However, what I can say to you, Mr. Wilby, is that it's an RFP process, so anybody can apply for that. I'm going to look at that number, but again, anybody can apply through the RFP process and is welcome to do so.
Yeah, we understand that.
I don't know if any minorities applied, but I'll definitely look into that.
No, but we're talking about a city that every other word up here is diversity, how Englewood loves diversity.
Sure.
And then, when we see our government, when we see certain appointments, certain contracts, and, the meat and potatoes is going to people that don't even look like the people that are in the community. So it's a question that we need an answer for, so we could see if the hypocrisy actually has a meaning, or if it's something where the ends justify the means, or whatever is going on here. We need to know that there's some kind of diversity within the government that's representing a diverse community. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
I would just like to add
Mr.
that,
Wilby.
as the council president indicated, the process through which we solicit RFPs is it's called a fair and open process. No one is prevented from responding. And keep in mind that we're not dealing with individuals, we're dealing with firms and corporations, and they are under the same requirements that we are in terms of meeting equal opportunity goals and activities. The other thing I would add is that many of the individuals that we deal with within these firms are females and are people of color.
Yeah, but I mean, we understand that there's a procedure. And you know what, there was a procedure back in slavery There is a procedure back in Jim Crow. The police department has a procedure. Redlining had a procedure. Gentrification has we know that there's procedures, but we know how, the system that keeps certain people out works. So I don't really care about the procedure. I care about if it's actually something that is not my, some good old boy's nephew or somebody that has a political connection to some political party. I care about the business as usual. We don't care about the RFPs or the optics of governments, because we know that a lot of that stuff could be foregone and people could do what they want to do anyway to put who they want to put into these positions. My thing is, if Englewood would allocate a specific amount, not with people that have strings attached to them, but independent minorities that are able to, contribute to Englewood and make people feel empowered in their community. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the status quo. I know what the smoke and mirrors look like. All right? That's what I'm saying.
Since I don't see anybody else coming up, I'm going to close the public comment. The council will be voting on resolutions 024 to 030 and 032 to 036. Is there a motion on the floor? Does anybody want anything pulled from the consent agenda?
Yes. Can we pull 025 from the consent agenda to discuss and closed?
025?
Anything else?
Yes, Council President, would you also add 026 to that, both sides, and have further discussion in closed session?
Okay. Okay. Any others? Okay. So we're going to be voting on 024 through 027, 028, 29, 030, 032, to 036. I need a motion.
Move that those resolutions be adopted by unanimous consent.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Cohen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Glenn?
Yes.
Councilman Hamer?
Vote yes.
Councilwoman Rosenberg?
Yes.
Council President Cobb?
Yes. So now we got to vote. I declare this motion carried and the resolution is duly adopted. So resolutions,
For discussion.
no. So we got to do something with 025 and 026.
They requested further discussion in closed session.
Okay. So resolutions 025 and 026 have been pulled for further discussion in closed session. We have to vote on it.
Unless anyone objects.
Anyone object?
Resolutions for discussion.
So now we move on to resolutions for discussion. Who's going to step us through?
City manager.
City manager, could you please?
Yes. The first resolution is request for a resolution to amend the Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual. We included an informational memo in the package, and many of you may recall that you did do a update in 2017. However, we've had a very active legislature the last 2 years, and we've once again had to have the manual updated to include, and I included all of the types of legislation that has been added. A lot of it is strictly the legalese and the requirements that we have to meet, so there's very little in terms of prose. So that's essentially why it is a legal document, and we're looking for your support in approving this on the 21st. And I also wanted to remind you that this is a very important step. I've been advised that the council would very much like to get to conducting annual performance evaluations of the employees, and this is a very necessary step. The earlier we have this adopted, the more valid our process will be, keeping in mind that we would actually be evaluating employees for calendar year 2020, and those forms would be prepared and submitted in 2021, early 2021.
Councilwoman Rosenberg?
I'm definitely in favor, obviously, of updating accordingly, but I just want to make sure that any recommendations that you have before you leave, that we somehow codify or incorporate from the gaps that you see that we may already have, and not just the legalese, but procedures that you think need to be updated in Englewood.
Those are things that we're working on now. For instance, there is a policy for tuition reimbursement, but we need the procedures. So we're working on the actual procedures. We've talked about doing evaluations, but evaluation, I guess, formats have shifted. So we're looking at the original forms that we used several years ago, and we're going to be updating them. So we are looking to operationalize and implement these new activities.
Great.
I have a question. When this document is finalized and it's rolled out to the employees, are we going to have a confirmation process with that? You know, I get to sign when you get new policies and
Yes.
procedures.
In fact,
they'll-
that form is contained in the document. And yes, each employee would have to sign acknowledgement of receipt. They don't have to sign that they agree with it.
Right.
And it will go in each individual employee's personnel folder.
And will HR go to each department if needed to have a discussion about this document?
Yes.
You know, people don't, understand, or they have questions that need to be addressed.
I've already been discussing it in our weekly management meetings.
But I guess pushing it down to them. And, I saw in some parts of it, and I'm not gonna, I think some of the language, have you seen all the language of it? Have you read it all?
Yes.
Where it says the city manager, but ultimately, you're looking for the council to approve this document, right?
Yes. Well, once the council, it's kind of like the budget. Once the council approves it, then the
Right.
city manager is authorized to implement it and manage it.
Correct. So if the council has comments beyond tonight, can they send them to you?
Yes, because this is a process that we should actually do annually.
Sure.
Each reorganization meeting should include any changes. So for instance, if any new laws come out, they would be reflected in the version that is put on the reorganization meeting for 2021, and any other things that we wish to change. A lot of times, ideas may come up, sometimes even during the course of negotiation, and we may want to incorporate some of those ideas into our general personnel manual.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a living document.
So if anybody has any questions,
Okay.
please make sure we get them to Jewel.
Okay.
That way we will spend time tonight. We can ask those questions. So I guess the next bullet we can move to, right?
That's one that Yancy, the clerk, has
Yep.
been following up on.
So we have a lot of junk office furniture throughout City Hall and some in Liberty School. We're requesting at this time, especially with the move of the engineering department over to City Hall, a lot of office furniture and junk had to be moved around. In order to dispose a lot of these items, requires council authorization. I've requested also, though, that we double check to make sure. Sometimes the requirement is that we try to auction them off before they're declared junk, so we're looking into that right now, so that may be a possibility that we'd have to auction off. Some things are completely not auctionable. For example, all the filing cabinets that were stored in the basement prior to the flood, they're warped, twisted, and right now covered in mildew, and they really need to just be disposed of. There's a lot of old desks, a lot of old filing cabinets that are just in the old finance department area. They're just collecting dust at this point.
So you have like an inventory of stuff that you could put together so that
put
we
one
can
together,
we
yeah.
can act on that for you?
Yeah, I just wanted to get the idea and
Okay.
just to get the ball rolling on it. It's just, right now, there's really very little room to maneuver in those areas.
Yeah.
Just
And we're very wary of putting anything in the basement because of the chance of
Flood or
another
something.
pipe bursting and having another flood, yeah.
okay. Mike,
Just a quick question. If, I've seen in the past that at times different chambers of commerces will take things that are still usable but that we don't need, and store them this way. They can redistribute them to like businesses that are, trying to get off their feet, that can't afford desks or can't afford this, can't afford that. For things that are disposable, can we just do a check and see if any of the local chambers of commerces have such a storage facility and can redistribute them appropriately?
We can look,
Yeah,
yeah,
well-
definitely.
we'll try to give it away. I would
A lot
say
of
donate it to whoever
The
we can.
nonprofits, I think,
Nonprofits
would
and
be
all those
interested.
organizations, yeah. Yes, Councilman. Next bullet.
1033.
1033, this is a resolution which we are requested to pass periodically in order for our police department to participate in the law enforcement support program. This is the one which makes available excess Department of Defense equipment to police departments nationwide. They advised us on, I think it was December 31st,
Yeah.
that we essentially needed to reapply in order to be eligible for the coming year.
Yeah. Normally, doesn't the chief or the deputy chief come in front of us and walk us through that, what they're looking to get or something?
They do when they are making a specific request, as they
Right.
did the last time.
Right.
This is not a request for any specific equipment. This allows us to participate.
Okay.
So this will allow us to receive notifications, and then the chief or the deputy chief indicates what they would like to receive, and then they review that with the council.
Okay.
If I might add, the wording is the wording in the proposed resolution is the exact same as the last one that was adopted by the council a few months ago, so there are no changes made to that as well.
Okay.
So we still, question, we still have safeguards on this.
Sure.
So the stipulations that, if there's something being requested, we don't want tactical weapons or armaments or, equipment. And we just want to make sure that, everybody understands, and apparently we need to do this every year and maybe twice a year to reiterate that, whenever there's something that fits into that broad category of anything other than a computer or, some gear, clothing, and things of that sort, that we need to get an explanation and a formal request beforehand, and not at the very last minute.
Well, it would come at a workshop, and keep in mind that this is a workshop item. So the actual action is next week. And as I said before, when they have a specific request, that's when they come to explain what they're looking for, give a rationale for why they possibly need it. But there is language in that resolution that specifically prohibits the city's police department from requesting or accepting materials and equipment that are militaristic in nature. And we would continue to include that language.
My only concern is that somebody develops amnesia, and it doesn't continue every renewal period. So I just want to make sure that we include everything that we can to make sure that we have final responsibility for, the things that come into
Oh, we
this
do.
city.
When we're making a specific request, it's our resolution. This particular resolution is the format that the government requires.
I added the line
Yeah.
from last time.
Okay. Thank you.
The appointments you want to discuss in closed session?
Yeah,
Just so everyone's aware, these are the appointments that need to be made.
okay. The appointments we'll just discuss in closed session. Okay.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The appointments, we will discuss in closed session.
The only items that budget hearing dates is really.
Yeah, well, Joel, you can talk about the budget
Yeah.
hearing dates?
Yes. Do you have your memo, the one entitled 2020 Municipal Budget Calendar Update?
It's in your packet, everyone.
Yeah.
You previously received a copy of the five-year budget forecast that was prepared by our auditor. We knew we would be discussing the budget in January and February, but we gave you that far in advance so you'd have an opportunity to look at it since it covers such a broad period of time. What you have at the bottom of this particular memo is the proposed calendar for processing, approving the 2020 budget. The budget packages will be submitted to you tomorrow. And we are basically utilizing the time frame that is provided by the state based on the action taken each year by the local finance board. So as you can see, the budget hearing time frame is just that, it's a time frame. There are some specific dates that we can take a look at, but we would just wanted to identify the general period. Budget introduction can possibly take place on March 17th if we complete the budget hearings and essentially get our auditor's input in making some minor adjustments or changes that come out of those budget hearings. And then finally, adoption could take place either on April 21st or during the week of April 13th through the 17th. The state has indicated that municipal budgets should be adopted by April 30th of this year.
Just so you know, the Passover is from the 8th till the 16th.
Okay,
So those 2 weeks are pretty much out.
okay. So that puts us in line then for the 21st. And we would still be within
Yep.
and still significantly earlier
Yes.
than last year.
Passover is what date?
It's, I believe, the 8th till the 16th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So we're hearing that April 21st is the more
Yeah.
appropriate
Those
date.
2 full weeks are pretty much out completely.
Yes, the 21st is a Tuesday.
It's council meeting.
It's a council meeting day.
Actually, catching it in 95. Yeah, I'm not able to be here for the close rush.
So the budget, the calendar pages that you have, the January one basically shows you the date. The information that we've added regarding the budget is in the red print. So tomorrow, January 15th, will be the delivery of the budget books. Then you have, I guess, kind of like an unofficial reading and review period. The clerk has identified meetings that could be potential conflicts and what are some of the more likely open dates on which budget hearings could be held. I have indicated that I have a conflict on the 13th. If the 12th was a date that the majority of council were interested in, I could possibly make some adjustment to my calendar. So we're looking at the 10th, 11th, 12th, 19th, 25th as possible dates. And I believe the council president has indicated a preference for, I guess, keeping it to a small number of days?
Yeah, what I'd like to do is reducing the time and each, and we can discuss this, but, I think it just makes it more efficient that we do 30 minutes each department, and we talk about what happened in 2019 and what the request is in 2020. So that way, we can kind of really get to it and focus really just on the numbers, whether it be head count and things of that nature that affect the budget, capital. So I think that we stay right there and we stay focused on that. And that way, we could do 4 meetings a night. If we give everybody 30 minutes, they should come in and be prepared. So we can move forward faster than this, and whatever changes or whatever things that we want to do, we have a little bit more time and we're not up against the fence trying to
As long
respond.
as we get information beforehand.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're going to get the budget tomorrow, right?
But like the departments always like bring in their narratives.
Well, we can ask them to email the narratives, or we can talk to Jewel and them to get the narratives where we can read those things. But I think the more important part is the numbers, right?
Yep.
We know what the numbers are. The narratives is going to tell us what they did in the year, but the numbers going to bear
Yep.
how we react to that. So I think that if we do that, I think we can meet everybody's needs.
Right. Well, in an effort to make the budget easier to see, because, I mean, obviously, it's
Sure.
always a very thick book. The CFO has developed a set of summaries that will be the very first thing that you see in the book. So there'll be a summary of the overall budget, everything that's increased or decreased, with a brief explanation as to what was driving it. There'll be a summary of the revenues and what we achieved in the current year in terms of our percentages of revenues realized. And then there'll be a summary of appropriations proposed as well as actuals, and you'll see the difference instantly between the previous year, between
Yeah.
2019 and 2020. So that'll help you to identify the things that you want to focus on.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Cohen.
I think it would be wise for us to potentially set a policy, just general parameters, that any documents that any department wants to present to us at a hearing, the cutoff date is like the Friday before we're in our packets, that anything that is not in our packets the Friday before cannot be used at those hearings, because otherwise they throw paper at us at those hearings, and we're sitting there trying to struggle to find out and catch up while they're talking and everything else. If they know they have that hard deadline, then they're going to make sure that they're presented by then, because they'll know they have a deadline. We have never given them that kind of deadline before.
Well, we could actually tell Jewel, and she can deliver that message if they're ready to go.
But
To
just
make
to get-
sure. We can't have it the day before we get meet.
We can have a policy, though, that any documents not in that package by Friday, they are not allowed to present to us. This way, there's nothing that new is happening in the last 3 days before between that Friday and that Wednesday. There's not like there's any new things happening in their budgets. But the only thing is they're running late and they want to give it to us last minute, and then we can't digest it properly or discuss it properly. I'll just say, I'm just using an artificial deadline of that packet. If there's a different deadline, whatever. I'm just saying some deadline that gives us at least a couple of days to digest anything they're given, and for them to understand that we're not getting paper thrown at us at the budget hearings.
So I guess once the schedule of who's coming in front of us, then we kind of know that we need to have that 48 hours before or 72 hours before, whatever it is. We communicate that to Jewel. She'll make sure that those folks have it, because we don't know. We got dates, but we don't know who's in those dates.
Yeah, once the dates are set up,
Right.
along with time slots.
Correct.
Then we will give you a schedule in advance that fills in.
Right, so
who will
we'll know
appear.
what we should have.
And we try to maintain a balance between large departments and smaller departments, so you're not getting crushed with a series of large
Yep.
departments.
Yep, okay, so we'll do that. We'll do that.
Do we have the dates?
Huh?
Do we have the dates?
Well, we preliminarily, these dates that we have there,
All
that you
5
have on the
dates?
calendar. Yeah, I
5 dates?
would leave the date that we don't have, Jewel says she can't be here on the 13th.
So you want
So
us
we're
to-
not gonna have any meetings without Jewel, so 13th we take out.
So the 10th, 11th, 12th, 19th, and 25th.
Correct.
Everyone is okay with those dates?
Everybody's okay
What
with
is
those
the
dates?
February 10th,
February.
11th, 12th, 19th, and 25th.
Okay. The other suggestion I would make is perhaps whatever is the final date, like for instance, if we go with the 25th, we may want to have the auditor come so that you kind of have like a wrap-up of what the changes are.
Well, if the goal is that the 25th of February is a wrap-up date, why don't we change that, and then when we send out the new packet, we'll send out the calendar for those dates.
So if everyone wants to go back and review their calendar, let me know to double check and confirm that they're available these dates. If anyone has any conflicts, I guess I'll reach out to everybody and.
Okay.
you'll
So
let me know.
respond to Yancy if you don't,
Yeah, if you want to double check
if you
your
want
calendar.
to go double check, just in case you don't know right now.
And once we confirm the
Send-
dates,
send
then
her
we'll
a
reach
note.
out to the auditor.
Yeah, and if everything's okay, I'll have a resolution at the next meeting
Okay.
for these dates.
You good, Councilman Hammond?
Sounds good.
Okay. This last one, who's this? Resolution authorizing the contract with the government management? That's Jewel.
Yes.
Bill, maybe you want to talk about this?
Yeah.
Sure. This,
Makes sense.
that item for discussion is really to extend the contract to allow us to continue to hopefully have Jules find services through her company that she's affiliated with,
Through
Okay.
through the end of March.
Till the end of March.
which if everyone's on board, we can just do the resolution at the next meeting and,
Yep.
update the contract that was approved last year.
Sure. Okay. So since there are so that part of the resolution for discussion is ended. Ordinances for discussion are none. Items for discussion, none. We'll open up this meeting to the public session. Anyone wishing to be heard?
Yeah, Jerry Chambers, President of North Jersey Black Caucus. First, I want to congratulate Mr. Cobb and Ms. Weinberg for their appointments as President, Vice President of City Council. And secondly, I wasn't here at the last meeting, but my associate, Mr. Jenkins, had requested information on the breakdown of contracts for the city. Wanted to see a breakdown of all the professional service contracts and contracts, I think, over a certain amount, so we can see, try and do a determination as to what type of diversity, because there is some issues and concerns that we have in terms of the letting of all these contracts, and we don't see many African Americans getting any contracts. And the question I had at the last time I was here was, what's the process of even going about trying to pursue contracts with the city? So I don't know if any data has been put together to determine, the breakdown of the contracts, but we definitely like to pursue that.
Yep. Mr. Chambers, it's through the RFP process. So annually, people will be able to submit an RFP to the city of Englewood.
And how is that communicated? Because I'm in the insurance business, and I never see, any RFPs that are being put out. And I see there were some contracts and legal contracts and other professional services that was let out today, and I think we voted on before I got here. And I don't know if that was through the RFP process or not, or if that was just, by appointment.
No, their RFP process, people go out. It's open to everybody.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
I mean, however the process is.
But how is that communicated? Is it put in?
RFP requests are posted on the city's official website that is required by local public contracts law. They're also listed in the League of Municipalities, which has a very extensive contract.
Are there any
solicitation
contracts that are
page.
put out without RFPs? Any type of services or contracts that are let without RFP?
Bids. We have contracts that come by bids. There are very specifically defined processes that you have to use, and for professional services, it has to be RFP. All of our other contracts for construction, any of the activities, those are usually generated through bids.
Okay. In reference to Mr. Jenkins' request last week, has there been anything looked at or put together to determine what percentage of the contracts being let out are going to minorities and African Americans?
No.
Or is there any consideration? Any type of process? How
When you
do
say-
we work with the city to try and come up with some type of process that's going to enable more minorities to go after contracts?
Well, I believe if it's put on the city's website, then and it's put out by the legal municipalities, then we just may have to do a different type of job or a better job just at telling them where to go and where to look for these things.
But are there any affirmative action set-asides, anything of that nature? Because even with the RFP, sometimes the RFP can be skewed to favor certain contractors and professionals. I mean, I've seen it done many times where there's ways that the RFP can be set up in favor of an entity. So how do we neutralize that?
Well, let me get back to you on that. I'll look into that, but I believe, I'll look into that and get back to you with that, but, so we'll understand the process
Right.
and we can go through the process with you as well.
Okay,
All right.
all right.
Councilman?
What I think you might be referring to in a sense is, for instance, like in New York State, where there's a 20% WMBE set aside for all state contracts, and New York City has actually a higher bid threshold. I believe theirs is 30% been raised to a WMBE threshold. If there's anything like that governing our municipal contracts, which I don't believe there are. I mean, I for one would be open to us, if I don't know if it's legally permissible to do, but if we're legally allowed, which would be a question for the attorney, if we're allowed to go down that road and see if that's something that we're allowed to implement on some threshold basis for WMBEs, that's something to look into. I mean, it's something that can't be done for this year's contracts. It's a longer term, but that's the methodology that other states and larger municipalities, not on our size usually, have taken into account to ensure what you're talking about. So perhaps it's something to look into.
Well, I think that is something that should be looked into, especially the fact that I think the question that Mr. Jenkins asked was the percentage of minorities that even got any contract. So if it's a very low percentage, that to me would indicate that there's some issues that need to be resolved to ensure that it's a fair process and enable more minority business entrepreneurs and contractors and professionals to be in a stronger position to get contracts with the city. I mean, this is a very diverse city, so if we're not getting any contracts, I think that would indicate there's some problems somewhere, and how do we resolve it?
Councilman?
But one of the issues that you've also faced in municipalities have had those bid thresholds for WMBEs. I know New York City and New York State have consistently had the problems of not having enough qualified applications for those, so they can't.
Well, that's all, we're not even talking about not being I'm talking about qualified. So let's take that non-qualified out. Okay.
No, let me just finish, because what they've done though, in order to make sure that those thresholds are seen as ones that are not just out there for for numbers but are real, is they've also set up legal mentorship programs to make sure that those thresholds can be met, even if it's over a couple of years. But what I'm just saying is if they've realized that if there are problems of having not enough entities that can qualify for those, there's a process also in place in a lot of those municipalities to have mentorship or other types of programs to make sure that those things can change. Okay. So obviously and that's.
Well, I think there needs to be some dialogue, and we need to sit down and how we can work it out.
I'll get back to you on that, Mr. Chambers.
The other thing I want to address is the issue that I've been pushing for a while in terms of trying to look into how we can develop a civilian review board and eliminate the police just reviewing themselves.
Okay.
That's a major issue, in the African-American community. So I want to know what's the process that we need to go through to sit down with whoever to try and evaluate how we can develop a civilian review board process.
I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. Yes.
Good evening, everybody. Thurman Williams, T&J Construction Home Improvement. I've been out here for the last 20 years. And relative to what was just spoken, there's a few things I like to talk about, but I like to also ask questions and the statements that I make. Well, first, the issues is going to be based on employment and housing. I think that this council, this body, should have emergency state, because by the time you implement laws or rules or policies to provide an equal playing field for the contractors of a minority background and the development in Englewood, it's going to be too late. Now, I originated in New York City, and what we had to do, we formed coalitions and we had to stop the job sites, because by law, it's our tax dollars that was being spent on people outside of the minority field that was getting all the contracts. But if it's our tax dollars, then it's our right to have a percentage of whatever's being built in that community. Now, we shouldn't have to wait till things are being implemented and then it's too late. We should have an emergency state where these minority contractors, now, as many of us that's qualified, I'm a qualified contractor. I've been doing contracts for 40 years. And I started out in New York. I came out here and I worked with Mr. Hall. First year I came out here right here at the Town Hall Development. I did the burnout McDonald's, and I did many houses throughout the entire district. But that's one of the problems. Like, you need to address the issues. You don't have no training programs for these young black men, so you have police issues. So what he's asking for a civilian review board to review, to monitor the police, you're gonna need that, because if you don't give the black kids no training, then they don't have no employment, and you don't give up any employment, and you don't have any kind of correspondence between government agencies that provide employment, education, or other assistance that is part of the social and economic development of a community, because there's no letters going out into the general public. There's no information. These contractors are coming in and they're developing things and nobody is getting money. So what happened? This is a form of regentrification. This is how you push out people that don't have money and no say so. So I think that you should consider this a state of emergency and eliminate the time that it takes to get together and create policies or rules or whatever you want to do to make it even playing field. They got a big development going over here, and it's a damn shame that we ain't got no part of it. It's bad. It's sad. You know? I mean, life is too short to be waiting on it. It's not an even playing field. So for right now, that's all I have to say. But you can look forward to me being part of the political backlash and all of this that's going on. Thank you so much. Appreciate the moment.
Thank you, Mr.
Ricardo Wilby again, Englewood, New Jersey. Churchill once said, "An appeaser is one who feeds a crocodile, open it will eat him last." Okay? We're pretty much certain what's going on here in Englewood. Bergen County themselves has a 10% set aside for minority. I came up here before, Mr. Cohen, you smirked when I said something about slavery. Do you have a problem with slavery? Do you think that what happened to my ancestors is funny? Does it amuse you what happened 400 years of slavery in this country, chattel slavery? And after that, we had Jim Crow, we dealt with the Klan, mass incarceration, everything that's going on. I text you something that was very important. You didn't even have the decency to get back to me. I text you a message about a threat to a black church, okay? Do you only deal with matters pertaining to the Jewish community, or does your organization deal with matters of all injustices to all people? I need you to answer that question. I'm waiting. Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, you know very well that every time you call, I respond. I did not see any text from you. I would have responded either way. Whether it was a yes or a no, I would have responded.
Well, I'm going to show it to you after the meeting.
That's fine.
Okay? And I want everybody to know, in the city of Englewood and around this United States of America, okay, black people see what's going on with capitalism and white supremacy. We come here all the time, and I warn this council about what's going on. It's very, very real. We have neighborhoods that an immigrant like my father was able to come to back in the early 70s and have an opportunity that are now completely gentrified and whitewashed. And then you want to blow smoke up our asses and tell us that it's our fault, or try to rationalize why we don't have a community center, why we so-called can't pass the fireman's test so you can hire 15 white boys consecutively, why we got to have people that look like us that don't do nothing for us in power, but that's good enough. Those things are not going to be good enough anymore, because people are waking up to the facts of what's going on in their community. And black people are not doing it to themselves, Mr. Cohen. Okay, for every action is an equal yet opposite reaction, but at times the reaction is not always opposite. Sometimes the reaction is actually the same action to prevent the action from happening. So something is going on, whether you're talking about New York City or any of these places like Harlem or Brooklyn or any place where black folks live comfortably. They had opportunities for employment. They had opportunities to have a good life. Those things are being taken away. And then everybody wants to be upset and mad and make stupid comments about fire and brimstone. The last I checked, this was the United States of America. Okay? Once upon a time, somebody said liberty or death on stolen land after he killed 100 million Indians. And then turned around and took a ship to Africa and killed another 100 million in the Middle Passage alone. And continued to build his empire, not thinking that we needed to make right our wrong. Okay? So don't tell me nothing about fire and brimstone. You haven't seen fire and brimstone yet. The day you have to pay for your father's sins, that's the day that's going to be fire and brimstone.
Jack Silverman, 320 Murray Avenue. Hi, everybody. I can't follow Rick. He's a good speaker, man. So don't agree with a lot he has to say. Some of the stuff I do, though. So I'm going to have to just go through this stuff as best I can. No one ever got back to me from last month, and I know you had Christmas and all that, but there's some things that I was hoping that when I was told that we would hear back, I would hear back at some point. I would hear back maybe within a few days.
About what?
There's several issues, but I mean that's why I'm going to have to go through them, and I don't want to waste too much time. But let me see right here. The situation I wanted to find out, you look into campaign signs. That you had a situation where it's been a law on the books. Yancey has told us she's been sending it to candidates. I only became aware of it this year, that it was actually now to be enforced. So the city needs to enforce that. You've got to decide who's going to enforce it. Yancey said she's not willing to. She has no time for that. So you have to decide who's going to be doing that. In other words, it goes to the police to give tickets out.
Yes. She's going to respond to that.
Jack, we should stop repeating that. You've been repeating that at every meeting. You're repeating something that I said
Is this taking my time, by the way? Does this take my 4 minutes?
No, she's
Okay, I
responding.
don't want to take my 4 minutes.
You're repeating something that I said to you on Election Day when I was busy running around. So I have not responded to you outside of that. So please stop repeating that to everybody. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's fine. I thought you did, when I asked you that afterwards, you said you weren't interested in it, you were not going to have time to deal with it. My apologies if that's the case.
Let's go.
So I do think we need to, it's not going to continue. I know the first campaign that gets a ticket, it will stop. So you really, this is not a big issue.
Okay.
And it's just, we have too much litter on the streets. People, one campaign will get angry at the other campaign and half pull down, and the rain pulls them down. And now it's against the law, so it's going to be easy. Okay,
Right.
so.
Point taken.
I'm sorry? Okay.
Point taken. Go ahead.
So I'd hope that they decide how they're going to handle that, and if the police are going to get involved, or how that's going to be dealt, so everybody knows clearly for next campaign, next election. The next thing is, there's a situation where I've got, I had asked the DPW to pick up some bamboo that I wanted that was overhanging my neighbor's yard, and I thought that would be a nice time to do it when you had the Christmas tree pickup. I did ask them beforehand, and Ray said I'd have to go over his head. I'd made half a joke. I said, well, call it a Hanukkah bush. And I really did have one when I was a kid. So I'm not only half joking with that. I mean, the thing is, you can't make, determinations about that type of thing. If you're having two weeks out of the year, you're picking up other detritus from other people and not from some other stuff. You have to make it fair. You have to have like once a month during the year. There's a lot of stuff falling these days. We're having much more powerful storms. Maybe once a month the city picks up for everybody.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Did you contact DPW? Did they give you instructions how to deal with this?
Well, I know it. The deal in the past, they'll say to put this stuff, everything at this time of year, you put it in the gray And I do that a lot of
So-
times. And the gray, your regular trash.
Right.
It costs $85 a ton, if I have that number correctly. It's very expensive. And from a waste standpoint, why would we want to be, and an environmental standpoint, and a money standpoint, really, why would we want to do that when they're already coming around down the street picking up Christmas trees? And they could pick this up, and bamboo is even stronger than Christmas trees.
But I
since
guess if that's DPW's policy, right, and that's what they're doing, that's how they want to handle that.
Well, that's why you guys handle policy. I'm here to suggest,
Right.
I'm on the Environmental Commission, I'm speaking for myself, but I've done a lot for the city over the years so that they can understand why, the sense. The reason why you guys pick up white metal, by the way, is because of me. I did the math and the work 15 years ago and told you how much money you were wasting on not having that metal coming to you. And now you call, you make an appointment, and you pick it up. They could do the same thing and say, hey, we make an appointment. Now, they could say, because I try to make an appointment with them on a day that you're picking up the same stuff. That's it. You don't have to make a big deal out of that. If they want, again, the best way to do this is probably have other pickups. I had a big log fall from the back neighbor's tree between the two garages of my neighbor and my house. So it's like 3 feet. It's one of ours. We have to take care of it. So we got to deal with that and maybe cut it up, put it into the trash. It's kind of going to be really heavy to do that. And we could leave it. I'll just probably leave it until the spring.
Did they pick up the bamboo, though?
No.
They have not put it
No.
up. Did you put it in the can?
I had pictures. I had it in the can, sitting up in a yellow can, not the gray, in a yellow
Well,
can.
they told you to put
And
it in
then we had all the windy weather. It was so many days worth. It started blowing around, and one of my neighbors called me, could I handle it and try to move it in a pile, and I did. So now it's in a pile, very neatly put into on the curb.
Okay,
Okay.
next.
Last thing.
What, next? You got one more thing.
Sorry.
You said you had one more thing?
Yeah,
to say?
last thing, you got to really, these calendars now. I used to help Clyde years ago, as a favor, kind of via the EEC, going over some of these calendars and taking care of the mistakes. First of all, I don't know one year that they've come on time. They need to be coming like the last, second week or third week of December, because there's information on there telling you, basically, I didn't know that the last leaf collection was December 31st. It didn't say anything about that. You have to look at the January calendar to know that. Of course, yes, when you got it on the computer on January 1st, they did have it on the computer. Some people aren't going to have access to computers. This calendar, you go back to old calendars here, they were a lot easier to read. This one, must have had a sale on red. Now, I love the color red for just pointing things out, but they decided because they're going to put everything red. The only place that they have blue is age-friendly Englewood, and that's like an advertisement. I don't know if they pay for that or something, and if we're already paying for blue, we should use blue in a couple of places. But it needs to be more clear. This calendar, for the first time, you've got in October, something that's so difficult to understand. I was talking to a couple of people to try to figure it out. And again, I'm interested in this stuff, so I know. Why do you have, in red, in October, every day, it says leaf collection. Well, leaf collection seems like you would think, you've got bagged leaves are being picked up and leaf collection. Usually leaf collection means you're putting it, as far as I knew, you're putting it into the street. But ultimately, we're told that you have to wait 2 or 3 days before you're allowed to do that. This is very confusing, and it's never been on. I have 3 or 4 calendars here, and more at home. No, never have we had leaf collection as a word in red all of October. I mean, it probably goes on to all of November. It's just a confusing term. It just doesn't make it. You're using a new term that no one understands.
Okay. Well, no.
There's more things, and I'd be happy. I've given you guys suggestions. I'd be happy. Or I think we need to have a graphic artist, someone who does the artwork. I don't know if DPW is hiring it out, but someone is making some real mistakes on this, and it needs to be done, and it really needs to come on time in the future. Thanks.
Jack, just wanted to just get a heads up. You were talking about the bamboo that was already down. The council, I don't know if there's bamboo still up wherever your neighbors are, but the council did pass, I think it's 3 years ago, an ordinance regarding bamboo and I think they were called invasive weeds, or I forgot what the exact terminology was. So at this point, I believe, and I'd have to double check with the code, I believe you're not allowed to have any bamboo within 10 feet of of your neighbor's yards. So if that's the case, you can also look at code enforcement if that's fallen down on your property.
Say again?
You're at this, you have to check, I guess, with the clerk.
My
on the-
parent,
on the
my
exact-
neighbors actually had never complained about this. They liked them, they let it grow on their property for a while, a
No, I'm
long
just
time
saying,
until it got it.
because bamboo has proved, and some other.
Invasives, yeah.
Have proven to destroy other people's properties when they're there. We have like, I believe it's, I have to check, I believe it's a 10-foot buffer between bamboo and the property line of anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's causing you problems.
Oh, no, this is my bamboo.
Oh. Sorry.
So, I'll be fair about that. No, I mean, so that they never had they don't have a problem with this. This is not, I mean, this is on my property, not planted by me.
sorry.
Okay.
All right,
Not
Jack,
planted by
we
me.
got it.
I'm sorry?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, how are you? My name is Kim, and I'm a new resident of Englewood. And
Address?
258 Harlem Road. And I moved here about 6 weeks ago, and the contractor who built my house told me that I would have to come to a council meeting to see if they can move the children at play sign that's placed right in front of my house. I did contact the police department, and Officer Sean Blaine approved it, and then his sergeant didn't feel comfortable. I told him, you have 4 on the same block, about 50 feet away from each other, and I told him that what's happening with the sign is that every time a car, I live on Harlem Road, but you know there's 2 side streets on that road. So every time a car is coming down that road, the sign is reflecting the headlights from the cars into my house and is creating like a huge shadowing effect constantly. So it's becoming a nuisance because it's all day at nighttime when you're living in the living room, and it looks like a strobe lights in your house. So they suggested that if I can come here, it can be moved to the right. There's about 20 feet, which will still display the children at play sign, and that was their suggestion, to see if I can get it moved during this meeting. And I could show the pictures, that's why I brought my phone.
Yes,
Yes?
we'll follow up on that.
Okay,
I think that's a very reasonable request.
Yeah.
okay. So do I come back, or it just happens?
No, you don't have to come back.
No, you don't have to come back. We'll look into it.
Yeah.
How are you going to follow up with? Should
Yeah.
we get her number?
I don't want you to have to, you want to just come up and give
Step
me.
right here to
Sure.
the city manager. She'll get your.
I don't want you to put it out loud. We'll take care of it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. You too. There's nobody else, huh? Since we see nobody else coming to the mic, we're gonna close this portion of the public meeting. Bill? We're going into closed session.
Be resolved by the governing body of the City of Englewood that a meeting closed session pursuant to subsection 7 dealing with litigation, contract negotiations, and matters within the attorney-client privilege, and subsection 8 dealing with matters pertaining to appointments. Be it further resolved, that the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public upon taking final action thereon, provided it does not constitute undue invasion of privacy or violate the attorney-client privilege. It be further resolved that the council will return to open session at the conclusion of the closed session and reserves the right to take any action at that time.
So we're now in closed session.
Just need a motion, a second.
We need a motion to go into closed.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 I'm good. How you doing?